good evening. Been a long time since I've done one of these videos in general, let alone with specific topics or just going on a couple of rants, which I'm bound to do because there's a lot to rant about on planet Earth, particularly in the sports world. There's a lot going on. As we all know, first and foremost, I hope everyone's staying safe, and I say that with quotation marks because it's polite to say that. We are, of course, mostly safe, and we are getting safer by the month, but you're not being told that, and I'm sure we will get to that point at some point. We'll start off with the very basics of the basics. Today is the Champions League draw. Very exciting stuff. Probably one of the most exciting draws there is in football, and if you're from America or Australia, that's soccer. It is probably one of the most exciting times, apart from maybe the World Cup draw. And yeah, we can't wait as fans. We can't wait as fans. Sport is one of the few things that is trying to keep our sanity right now with everything going on. And I appreciate that the Champions League is still going ahead along with all other competitions. So, we should probably start off with one of the more controversial topics. I've already mentioned it. I'm just going to do it now to get it out of the way. We are all now, particularly in places like the UK, we are now currently under brand new lockdown restrictions for COVID-19. I just want to tell people, I'm not telling you to go out and break the rules, but I will also say you will be completely safe if you do. Okay, maybe if you have a heart condition, or maybe if you have, some elderly, poorly family members. Sure, okay, maybe it's not safe for them, but it wasn't safe for them anyway. If you had a common cold, you still wouldn't go see them, just in case, right? Because you're human, you want to look after these people. And I understand the reaction, it's about looking after us. But at this point, imposing brand new rules, like, it's got nothing to do with protecting us at this point. Now it's about trying to fuck with us. It's about mentally screwing with us, because they need that right now, especially in the UK. They really need our brains to be all over the place right now with the whole Brexit nonsense, which is now escalating to a new level because I predicted that the EU would try to take the UK to court because they were a way to lose their biggest credit card, and lo and behold, the EU is now threatening to take the UK to court over Brexit. So, this is all going on whilst apparently they're trying to look after us by keeping us in cages, allowing children to go back to school. Every child, for that matter, by the way, every child is back at school. However, university students are on lockdown in their campuses, not at home, in their campuses. So you can imagine how hellish that must be for them. And we're not allowed to go and see a certain amount of family members. But all the kids can go back to school because kids are less likely to get ill. That's what we've been told. Okay? That's true. Okay? It's true. They're more likely to be carriers. They're more likely to be carriers than to get ill. But that's why we were in lockdown in the first place. Because you didn't have to be ill to carry the virus or spread the virus. So the contradictory information you're getting, I understand that it's confusing you, I can understand it's hurting your head, and I completely sympathize, as does every other intelligent person who needs to put up with this crap. And these cards that I'm being given is crap, but they get a 21, they get a blackjack, of course they do. That's typical. They're the government and I'm the average Joe. That's what that hand was that you just saw right there. However, the government doesn't like when you up the stakes.
Bets are now closed. Let's begin.
Hang on a sec. I'm in a battle of wits now.
We got 10.
Don't you dare.
Would you like another card?
Yeah, I'll stand.
A 16.
Uh-oh. Hey. That's more like it. That is more like it. Okay.
Hats off to you. Do come back soon.
Got a small little victory there. That felt pretty good. Now I've got to go get the charger for my controller. And yes, I'll just say this. Beware, UK government. Beware, American government, or any government who is still trying to impose contradictory lockdown rules on the world, because it's not going to work and people can see through it. So, now we've got the bullshit of the real world out of the way. Now we can talk about the more interesting world, the world of sport. And first thing I want to talk about, apart from the Champions League, which I've already said is happening, we'll talk about football a bit later on. UFC. Been getting heavily into UFC since lockdown. The first Fight Island, everything prior to that. UFC was heading in a fantastic direction anyway, with the roster available, with the form of certain people, with the records that people boast. UFC might not have been in a better position than they are now. And the recent fights that they've put on highlights this twicefold. The last fight night we had, fight night, mind, not a pay-per-view, not a UFC 250 whatever. This was a fight night on a Sunday night. Colby Covington versus Tyron Woodley, Donald Cerrone and Nico Price, and Khamzat Chimaev versus Gerald Meerschaert. Oh, and Mackenzie Dern versus Randa Marcos, Johnny Walker versus Ryan Spann. Walker gets a win, Mackenzie Dern got the win. But let's talk about the top 3 fights from that card, because that was an interesting card to begin with. We'll talk about the Adesanya Costa fight and pay-per-view after this. But these 3 fights intrigued me when I was watching them. Well, the first one didn't really last long, and that's Chimaev versus Meerschaert. I understand people's hesitance to get behind Chimaev because everyone's flies out of the gate these days. You know, look at Sean O'Malley. Absolutely flew out of the gate, undefeated. Comes back from injury, goes undefeated again. But then finally gets stopped by Vera. Okay? Chimaev has barely even been hit yet. Like, let alone someone taking him the distance. Like, not even that. People can't get past this guy because he smothers you. He completely smothers you. From the fights I've seen, his ground and pound is second only to Khabib's. I say second only to Khabib's because it's too early to say if he can do it better than Khabib. I believe not. That's why he's only 9-0 and Khabib's 28-0. But anyway, Chimaev comes into this fight with Meerschaert 8-0, and Meerschaert looked pretty good in his last fight. He didn't fight that long ago. I'm pretty sure he was victorious in that fight. So he comes into this fight with Chimaev with a little bit of momentum on his side, right? A little bit of momentum. He sounds confident in the press conference. Chimaev, you know, the thing is with Chimaev is that he doesn't feel like he's confident. You just feel like he's telling you the truth. Like when Khabib tells you he's going to smash you, like you're like, oh yeah, this guy's full of it. You know, he's full of confidence, and rightly so. When Chimaev says it, you go, huh, he means that, doesn't he? He actually means that. And as I said, he's been all about the takedowns and the ground and pound thus far. But then he goes against Meerschaert. Meerschaert is backing up. He's backing up. We're only 5 or 10 seconds into this fight, by the way. Only 5 or 10 seconds. He's backing up. He's backing up. He looks absolutely terrified of Chimaev. He looks so petrified to make the first move. It's like he dare not make the first move. He was never going to make the first move, proper move against Chimaev. It was always going to be Chimaev on Mearshart. But Mearshart was banking that Chimaev was all about the takedowns, that Chimaev wasn't a good striker on the feet. So we get 15 seconds into this fight now, so another 5 seconds has passed. Chimaev decides to throw a right hand. One right hand, and he knocks him out. Chimaev knocks this motherfucker out, and I mean out. Like, not the sort of out where he goes to the ground and you need to follow up with punches. I mean, Chimaev did that anyway. But Chimaev could have walked off without hitting him, and the ref still would have called the fight. Like, it was a very similar punch to how O'Malley took out Vineland, however you pronounce his name. It was actually a very similar right hook, sort of kind of not a feint, but went in with the left, didn't do anything with the left, but then came in with the big right, cracked him, boom, that's it, fight over. Khamzat Chimaev has my attention, and he should have your attention too if you're a huge UFC fan. If you're a gambling man, and as you can see from what's on the screen, I am, my money would be on Chimaev. Because Chimaev right now is in that vein. Like, I don't doubt that one day someone's going to take him the distance. Hell, someone's going to reopen that weird cut mark that he's got on his lip where it clearly has been sliced open before. Like, it's clearly been sliced open before. And I'm sure someone will open it up again, but right now it doesn't look like anyone's going to do that. The guy's got a fight lined up with Damian Maia. If you're a hardcore UFC fan, you know exactly who Damian Maia is. And if you don't, Damian Maia is... I wouldn't say he's of the level of the Anderson Silvas in the history of the UFC, but he's the next level behind that. You know, he's on that level with the Forrest Griffins and Hall of Famers, basically. So he's no slouch. He's still one of the greatest that was around for his time. He's still technically around. He's coming back. He's supposedly fighting Chimaev. And I think the reason that's been put together is because Damian Maia, although has lost, he's never been finished. And the difference, if you don't know, finished means obviously you're beaten before it gets to the judges. So Maia has lost on judges. And I've just lost $7.5 grand. Came runner-up. That's a bitch. Yeah, anyway, Chimaev is fighting Damian Maia. And we say he beats Maia, he goes 10-0. He goes 10-0. And he's a guy who's proved he can fight in the welterweight division, and he's proved he can fight in the middleweight division. He's had 2 fights in middleweight and one fight in welterweight, and and the gap between those fights was still pretty damn small. You know, Chimaev is a scary guy. I'll just say that right now. If he goes 10-0 against Maia, do not be shocked if he very quickly gets interjected into the conversation of a title fight with Izzy Adesanya, and that'll just be superb. Donald Cerrone versus Nico Price was the co-main event for that fight night. It was a draw. First draw of Donald Cerrone's career and Nico Price. Both have had non-contests in the past. But this was a straight draw after 3 rounds. And you know, yeah, I hate with a passion draws in martial arts. I really do. My least favorite draw of all time was, I know this is in UFC, but my least favorite draw that I ever saw was Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury the first time. Because I think the only reason they made that a draw was because Fury was knocked out for a little bit in the last round. But apart from that, he won the fight. So everyone was like, well, Fury got robbed. He had the rematch, Fury won, he wasn't robbed that time. All's well that ends well, right? But this is one of those few occasions where you go, well, yeah, I couldn't really pick a winner. Price was more energetic, but Cerrone was a little bit more clinical, which is what you expect. Price is quite a fiery, active guy, and Cerrone is the vet. Close to retirement, might I add. It sounds like Dana White would rather this guy retire sooner rather than later, which I think would be a bit of a shame. But you know, the guy's had 53 fights, including that non-contest. Like, yeah. It's a shame. I do love Cowboy. A lot of people love Cowboy. And I hope he stays around for a couple of fights more. I think the rematch with Price is inevitable. I don't think that would be the match we would see Cerrone retire at, but it could be the penultimate. It could be the second last fight that we see him in. Because him and Price definitely want to do that again. Make no mistake, they want to have that fight again. We will see that fight again. We will see Cerrone versus Price. Dana White will have that fight because it's a big fight. If you're going to do Fight Island and say do another 2 titles or a #1 contenders fight or whatever, Cerrone and Price would still get on that main card. You know what I mean?
Sounds like one of those movies set in ancient Ireland with bear wenches and sword fights.
Yeah, I would love to see that fight again. Then we get to the main event. The event that the fight night was named after. Colby Chaos Covington versus Tyron, the Chosen One, Woodley. He is no longer the Chosen One. I will say that. Man's on a three match losing streak, maybe 4. It's a drastic fall from grace for the former champion, it has to be said. But Tyron's been battling through all this. He just fought. He fought Gilbert Burns, and he lost. Quite stoically lost, I must say. He comes up against Colby, and people fucking hate Colby. And you know what? They don't hate Colby because of the reasons that Colby wants you to hate him. I mean, in America, sure. If you're going to wear Trump stuff, of course you're going to get cheap heat and the reaction from the dumbass politically involved people. But the main reason why they don't like Colby is because of that, in a different sense. They think he's a fake bitch. That's the problem. But I tell you something. Every time he drops the act, and let's face it, the only time he ever drops the act is when he's in the octagon. He is good. And you can shit on me for having that opinion, you can call me an idiot. I'm not an idiot. Colby Covington is a good fucking martial artist. He's one of the best welterweights in the world. He's one of the best in the world. 2 defeats. 2 defeats, 16 wins. That's a pretty fucking solid record, and he's beaten Woodley. One of those losses came to Usman. And Usman, like, where's the shame in losing to Kamaru Usman right now? There's no shame in losing to Usman. None at all. So he goes out there with Woodley, and I'll give it to them. I kind of saw what some people talk about with Colby. He is not the most entertaining fighter in the world. You know, he's not a highlight reel fighter. He's a fighter, but he's not a highlight reel. But to be honest, you look at the welterweight division, and you think about who's actually active. Right? Apart from maybe Masvidal, simply because of what he's done over the last couple of years alone, Masvidal has become a highlight reel, in a sense. Mainly thanks to Ben Askren and his big chin. but yeah, the welterweight division doesn't really have that many. I'm trying to think of how to describe it. They don't have many insanely captivating fighters. They've got amazing fighters. That's. I'm not saying that they don't, but like Colby Covington, if he's a boring fighter, then well, most of the welterweight division are boring fighters. I mean, I've seen Colby do some shit, but I mean, I wasn't impressed with Kamaru Usman just stamping on Jorge Masvidal's feet. I thought that was very limp. I mean, I'm sure there's a strategy to it, don't get me wrong, but I mean, you know, there's also a strategy to punching someone in the face as opposed to stamping on their toes. And these horses right now are really not favoring me. Yeah, Colby is in a good place right now, and love him, hate him, find him boring, think what he deserves. He did beat Tyron Woodley, and it not in a judge's decision. It ended in the 5th round. Woodley's rib went. I don't know if it just moved or if it broke, but it happened when Colby was squeezing Tyron Woodley. No one's talked about that yet. Everyone just said that Woodley's chest went from under him. Colby was squeezing his chest for half of that damn fight. So I wasn't really that surprised when his rib went. I was shocked at how it happened, but I wasn't shocked at what had happened, if that makes any sense. What do we think? 14. Do I take a big gamble and just throw away all my money right now, and then we go kill some people? I think so.
There we have 18.
That's how you do it. 160k.
Hats off to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Hats off to me, indeed. That's how you gamble with style. Right. Yeah, so I talk about Colby. Oh, and small note on Tyron Woodley. Like Cerrone, for different reasons though, I think T. Wood is very close to retiring, without it being his choice. If you know what I mean. I just don't. He's on 3 or 4 losses back to back, as I've said. That's significant for a former champion. Like 1 defeat, okay, it happens. 2 defeats, oh damn, this guy's in a slump. 3 fights, fans start to think, well, he's lost it. If this guy was a champion, he's lost it. No one would want to see him fight Usman again with this form. No one would want to see him take on even a top contender now that Colby's beating him. And you know, you've got so many other names in that welterweight division right now. Yeah, Tyron, obviously never going to listen to this, but goddamn, I hope someone gets the message to him that something needs to change. Something needs to change, or he needs a change. A scenery change, career change. That's not me being a couch critic saying, oh, he's shit now. This is me, as a fan, saying, I don't want to see this guy get the shit kicked out of him again for him to come up short, because I know what that will do to his head. I know what it's already done to his head. Losing to Colby Covington, right? The way these fighters feel about Colby, god damn, it'll be burning him already. Gilbert Burns would have burned. Losing his title would have burned him. So Tyron, like, God forbid, I'm sure you're a nice guy, but goddamn, something's got to change. Okay, so we've moved on from that fight night, and I only want to talk about 2 fights here. There's a lot of good fights. I'm not taking anything away from anybody. Other than Diego Sanchez, I can't believe fucking Conor McGregor pitched that he'll come back to fight Diego Sanchez, a guy who was on the prelim for this UFC 253 event. What the fuck's Conor doing? Like, honestly, I mean, the Dustin Poirier thing as well, like, you know, I love Conor. Part of me loves Conor, but most of me hates it because it's so hard to be a fan of his unless you're Irish. Unless you're Irish and you feel the pride that he feels, it's so hard to be a fan of him because he's such a wank, you know? Wow, we're at 200k now. We're doing well. This is a good gambling day. Always a top tip when you're gambling on GTA. If you are in the zone of making a profit, because I know it's hard to make a profit because you're always pulling out 50k. If you earn more than the 50k that you've taken out, put it back in. Right? So say I've got 200k now, okay? And fair, I started with 50, I pulled out an extra 50, so I've made 100k, right? I'm gonna go now, and I'm gonna put in that 100k. And I've made, in my bank, 50k profit. It'll even take me back up to $3 million, which is a nice little number to have. Right, yeah, so anyway, on from the Diego Sanchez stuff. There was a lot more important, bigger fights after that. The two title fights. The two title fights is what really caught everybody's attention. Because I think everybody, after what happened with Jon Jones, was kind of expecting Reyes to win in the light heavyweight title fight. And I did. I'll admit, I thought that he was going to not tear through Jan, but I thought he was going to just out-tactic him. But what happened was this Polish machine, Jan Blachowicz, if I've pronounced that wrong, I apologize, but Blachowicz fucking drilled him, man. Like, every single punch and kick this guy was landing was tearing him up. If you go watch the slow motion footage of Reyes versus Blachowicz, you will see just how gnarly that mark on his side is. And you'll see which mark I'm talking about instantly, by the way, because it is so noticeable. It's crazy. Yeah, Jan kicked Reyes' ass. If Reyes wants a rematch, I can understand that because of pride and all that, but all honesty, I don't think I would want to see that rematch, because I think the exact same thing would happen. There's nothing tactically Reyes could have done about that. Blachowicz was prepared for takedowns in case they happened, which wasn't really going to happen anyway. It was just going to be a slugfest. One guy had the reach advantage, the accuracy advantage, the power advantage, the height advantage, and you know what? That was all Jan, and Jan won and became champion. That's what happens. Second ever defeat for Reyes. Obviously his first one came from Jon Jones, so again, you know, he's only been beaten by Jan and Jon Jones, so I'm not knocking Reyes, but Reyes really did get taken to the fucking cleaners by Jan. He did. Now, and that was very near the end of the third round. I believe that happened near the end of the third round. Speaking of near the end of the third round, second round for both fights. Another key KO TKO. Israel Adesanya, 19-0, taking on Paulo Costa, 13-0. Described by Dana White as the potential fight of the year, which I thought was kind of a stupid thing to say, because there's no way that fight would have matched up to some of the other fights we've already seen in 2020. Gaethje, Tony Ferguson was a bigger bloodbath than that. Hooker versus Poirier was a superb fight. I'm not sure if this was in 2019 or 2020, but Joanna Jędrzejczyk versus Weili Zhang, or Zhang Weili. God damn. Like, that was the best fucking women's fight I've ever seen. There's been some absolute bangers. There's been some absolute bangers put on by the UFC. So for him to say that Adesanya versus Costa was going to be the best, everyone's hype was at like 11 out of 10. People were super hyped for this. So much so that, you know, Izzy Adesanya's haters got a little bit louder. Paulo Costa's haters got a little bit more tetchy over, oh, this guy's gonna pop for steroids. Well, I suppose Adesanya's kind of like that himself as well. Not for steroids, I mean thinking Costa will pop for steroids. So we get 2 rounds, not even 2 whole rounds. We get 1 whole round and most of round number 2, and this entire time Adesanya has been kicking Paulo Costa's jacked up ass. Kicking it. His legs welted, his knees welted. He delivered an insane kick, I believe in the second round. No, I think it might have been the first round. An insane head kick that cut Costa's eye. Adesanya's shin cut his eye. That's how good a kick it was. Then eventually Adesanya clips his temple with a big shot. Costa goes down. Adesanya assumes the position, starts raining down shots. Ref calls it, and then Adesanya promptly dry humps. Promptly dry humps Paulo Costa at the end of the fight. He's 20-0, and Costa is now 13-1. Big old 1 now in the career of Paulo Costa. Something that I know for a fact, did not see coming. He was so confident. And you know, confidence is not a bad thing. You know, obviously Adesanya came into this confident. But to me, and this is only me, right? You can get away with having that insane confidence when you're wearing the belt that says that you're the best in that weight class. If you're not wearing the belt, then your confidence can't honestly be that you are destined to be there. I mean, with the exception of maybe Conor McGregor. You know, the guy who just believed it. But Costa, this was going to go 2 ways. This is the conversation I had. I even tried to get Chael Sonnen's opinion on it, but he wouldn't let up. I said that the only way Paulo Costa wins this is if he knocks out Izzy. But I also said there was no way that it was going to go to the judges. I didn't think it was possible. I don't think Paulo Costa could go 5 rounds with Izzy Adesanya. So I thought either Costa's going to knock him out early, or Adesanya's going to knock him out early. And then Adesanya has different footwork from everyone that Costa's faced. When you watch Costa's fights, Costa bullies his opponents. He bullies you into a position, and he's looking down on you, and he's raining his shots down on you, and it's a nasty position to be in. But Adesanya was never in that position, always in control of his own position, his own stance, his own feet. And yeah, Costa fell. And Izzy Adesanya now has, forgive me if I'm wrong about this, but I'm fairly sure that Izzy Adesanya, in my book, has the 2nd best record in the UFC now. Because if Khabib's got the best, which is 28-0, I've got to believe that 20-0 has got to be the next best. I don't think there's anyone else who's got more than 20 wins and never been beaten in the UFC. If I'm wrong about that, then someone correct me, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. But I mean, it was a little bit of a letdown, I've got to say, because Costa just wasn't as good as everyone said he was, but Adesanya proved that he's every bit as good as everybody hates to admit he is. I'm a big fan of Adesanya. He's a showman. He's, you know, he's not a younger guy. He's not a brash guy. He's not an overconfident guy. He knows his talents. He knows his history. He knows what to do. He's done it for a long time, and it's not just UFC. This guy's done kickboxing and all sorts of shit over the years, and yeah, Costa got done. We do have a UFC on ESPN coming up, which is a big night for a couple of women and an undefeated middleweight called Dusko Todorovic. Dusko Todorovic is facing Dequan Townsend. Townsend 21-11. Todorovic is 9-0. As I said, though, that show's going to be big for the women, as that card has Jermaine Duradame, again, probably not pronouncing that right, one of the hardest hitters in the women's division, any women's division, versus Juliana Pena. Always got to get that Spanish pronunciation. Hang on.
Number 2 is in the 3rd spot. They're halfway home. Just off the lead second is the 5-horse. The 2-horse, the current leader. Coming down to the finish. Light it up. Lit as Trump takes first.
Right, that was better. Had to sort some things out. Yes, the main event for that is Holly Holm versus Irene Aldana. Both posing very similar records. Holly Holm 13-5, Irene 12-5. I'm not really entirely sure of the career history of Aldana. If you're a UFC fan, you do know the history of Holly Holm, the woman who kicked Ronda Rousey's head off in Australia, I believe it was. Then after that, we've got quite a big fight night again, with Marlon Murray versus Corey Sandhagen. It's a big bantamweight match. It could be for the #1 contendership, or at least to be next in line to be considered for it. And heavyweight Ben Rothwell returns to face Marcin Tybura. Tybura on 19-6. And Ben Rothwell on 38-12. That's one of the better. That's one of the better of the journeyman scores. It has to be said. Then we have yet another, and I'm saying this again, yet another fantastic main event for a fight night. So we've already said we're getting, well, we've just had Covington versus Woodley. Holm versus Aldana is UFC on ESPN, so it's not fight night. The next fight night after that was Murray versus Sandhagen. The next one, October 17th, is Brian Ortega versus the Korean zombie Chan Sung Young. That fight is going to be special. And if it ends quickly, I will be devastated, because the longer that fight goes on, the more legendary it will be. I am so excited for that fight. Everyone should be. If Dana wants to be talking about fights that could go to be fight of the year, I think Ortega versus Zombie can provide that. I really believe that. I believe that with quite a firm belief. So all these wonderful fight nights, all building up. All building up to UFC 254. Let me tell you something. UFC 254 looks absolutely epic, and there's only three confirmed prelims, one confirmed early prelim and two prelims. Main card has been settled, and I think it's one more fight than I'm usually used to seeing, if all honesty. I'm not sure if he's related, but Umar Nurmagomedov.
Number 6 is the last of 6.
Ah, he is the cousin brother of Khabib, Umar Nurmagomedov. So another Nurmagomedov. He's on the early prelims. He boasts, like his cousin brother, and a perfect record. He's 12-0. He takes on Sergey Morozov.
Stupid money wins. It always does. The world is burning. Have a longer light.
Prelims, couple of journeymen in there. Steven Struve, probably the biggest name. Main card time. Magomed Ankalaev versus Ion Kutlaba. 13-1 versus 15-5 with one no contest. Women's flyweight match. Lauren Murphy, 13-4, takes on Cynthia Calvillo, who currently boasts a record of 9-1-1. We have a lightweight fight between Rafael Dos Anjos, who I think we can both agree, all agree, is one of the best journeymen to step through the UFC. He takes on Islam Makhachev, who's 18-1. That's quite a solid record, actually. I think that's better than Usman's, or level with Usman's. But that's lightweight. Heavyweight battle between Walt Harris and Alexander Volkov. I think it's amazing that Walt Harris is even ranked at this point in the heavyweight division, if he is. Last time I checked he was, which I thought was a bit ridiculous, because the man now boasts a record of 13-8-0 with one no contest. It's not good. Like, regardless how you try and slice it, that is not good. It's just not. Regardless how you try to be positive about it, it's just not good. And he takes on Volkov, who's 31-8. Then co-main event. This is going to be good. This is the match that Izzy Adesanya has basically said, if Cannonier can win this fight, then he gets the shot at Izzy. But it's not going to be easy. Cannonier is going to have to face Robert Whittaker at UFC 254 for the shot at Adesanya down the line. Although that's not confirmed if Whittaker would then get the shot if Cannonier couldn't beat him. You'd imagine if Izzy saying that Cannonier would get the title shot if he won, I think Robert would be pretty pissed if he didn't get the title shot if he won. So I think it's safe to say that Robert Whittaker might be being lined up for another title match should he beat Jared Cannonier, who I think he can. I think Whittaker can beat Cannonier. And I think we'll see it happen in a couple of rounds. But yes, Robert Whittaker versus Cannonier, co-main event. And your main event. The fight that I argue might be the most important. It might be the most important, other than Costa versus Adesanya.
Good. Now, time for your bets.
Khabib Nurmagomedov
Bets are now closed.
versus Justin Gaethje.
20. 4. Would you like another card?
Gaethje is 22-2. He is the interim champion.
And 14. 15. Dealer is bust.
Nice. He is the interim champion. Khabib is undefeated. He is the champion. He's beaten everyone. He's beaten everybody. And he wants to hit that perfect 30, doesn't he? He wants to beat Gaethje. And then he wants one more fight. Now, he said that he would take the winner of a fight with whoever faces Poirier. And this ties into a certain gentleman I was talking about earlier. Who's just challenged Dustin Poirier to a fight? Outside of the UFC, but still, who just challenged Dustin Poirier to a fight? Conor McGregor. The one thing in this world that Conor McGregor wants more than more money is a chance to beat Khabib. Conor McGregor's entire career, ego, and everything he stands for means jack shit if he does not get another shot at Khabib. And I think he believes that too. He knows. He knows.
That's 15.
I'm taking this bitch to the cleaners for money. Woohoo!
Well done there.
Oh, it's only money. My horse placed second. God damn it. Oh well. I'll go for. You know what? I've done well with some winnings. I can go. I can go and have a little journey, celebrate. But yeah. Conor McGregor is going to want to beat Dustin Poirier, but the thing is, if they do it outside the UFC, he's not going to get what he wants. He's not going to face Khabib. Khabib, I believe, will have one more fight after this. I genuinely believe that losing his father is going to make him want all of this less. And you know, you can't blame him. It's a big change to his life. Big part of his team. His inspiration, drive. You know, the man who wanted to see Khabib achieve these things.
Here you go.
There we go. That's how you make 200 grand in the casino. But yes, with Khabib's father gone, you have to imagine that Khabib isn't going to do this for much longer. He's not going to go 40-0. He's not even going to go 35-0. Khabib will go 30-0, and I believe he'll step away. With the very right circumstances, he might do 31. The reason why I say that is because it's all dependent on a couple of things. Oh, look, there's my ride, the cherry popper. Nice. Right, where was I going with that? Yes. So, if Poirier and McGregor fight outside the UFC, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter even if Conor beats him. It doesn't matter to Dana. Dana's not just going to go, oh, well, you know, you beat him outside the UFC, we're going to give you the title match. Nah. If that fight happens outside of the UFC, right? If that fight happens outside the UFC and Khabib beats Gaethje, there is only one man that he will face to go 30-0, and that man is GSP. And I know everyone's like, oh, we hear it all the time, George St. Pierre is going to come back, he's going to fight somebody else. Yeah, well, in this case, he will. He always takes it with a pinch of salt, saying, never say never, but I'm enjoying life. As soon as someone mentioned to him that Khabib wanted it, George started rattling through his brain, well, I would have to do this, I would have to change my diet, I would have to train this way, And all of a sudden, people went, whoa, 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 whoa.
Sure thing. Hope you enjoy the ride.
You were considering this out loud. We can hear you saying this. Don't think GSP wouldn't fight Khabib. Khabib is probably the only man in the world that GSP would come back to fight. GSP's got no interest in McGregor. He's got no interest in Khamzat. He's got no interest in any of these fuckers. He's interested in Khabib Nurmagomedov because Khabib's got the record to suggest that he's the greatest fighter of all time and not GSP. That's what that'll all be about. But if Conor and Dustin do fight, if they do fight in the UFC, I do believe that the winner of that fight would fight Khabib in Khabib's 30th match. And then it would be, again, it would depend on the result. If, say, Khabib won that again, he got his 30-0, it would be on Khabib if he retires there and then. He vacates the titles, he retires properly, he's done. 30-0. He comes back for one more fight anyway. Now there's no title on the line. Now there is a very, very, very good reason for Khabib to go and fight GSP. But GSP might not take the fight unless the belt is on the line, because that's what happened with Bisping. The belt had to be on the line for GSP to come back. And so Khabib would have to go 30-0, not retire, and openly want to get a record of 31 wins with no losses and then retire. I know Khabib wants to beat GSP. Everybody who's even close to one of the weight classes of GSP would want to beat GSP because the world wouldn't shut up about it. In Khabib's case, it's not about the attention, it's about recognition.
Can you believe they let me fly a customer on my first day?
Because people will always argue that GSP is probably the greatest of all time, but if Khabib beats St. Pierre, but has also gone undefeated amongst his own generation, which is something that GSP didn't do. GSP's got a couple of losses.
I've only crashed twice.
Khabib would go down as the greatest of all time, hands down. No questions. He would go down as the greatest of all time. But he would have to stay undefeated. One defeat, it's over. If he loses to Gaethje, the dream's over. He loses to winner of Poirier versus McGregor, it's over. He loses to GSP, his career will be undermined for a very long time. Until people can once again look at him and say, you know what, he was actually so damn good. Instead of, oh, well, you know, eventually he faced GSP and GSP just went through him. God, could you imagine how devastating that would be for Khabib?
You're through to your garage. You, need me to bring your...
But I know Khabib doesn't think that he would lose that fight. I don't even know he'd lose that fight. I think Khabib's unbeatable because so far he has been exactly that. He has been unbeatable. And yeah,
I'll get there as soon as I can. I'll get back to work.
UFC, as I said at the beginning of that entire thing, has never been in a better place. Just so much is going on. Oh, and also on top of all this, just when things couldn't get any spicier, UFC only went and signed Michael fucking Chandler, who, in my opinion, right now is one of the most informed fighters in the world. UFC right now, seriously, if you've thought about getting into it, even if you're a casual viewer, there's never been a better time to be a casual viewer or a die-hard fan. UFC right now, seriously, is awesome, and it'll make you feel good just watching it. Even without crowds, UFC is still just as intense, it's just as brutal, if not more brutal, and it feels very, very personal. And you've got to love that. You've got to love that. So, I've touched on COVID. I've talked about the Champions. Did I just say that? I talked about the Champions League. I brushed on COVID. Now I've gone deep into the UFC. Now the next thing I want to talk about, and this is something that I knew already, but I needed some outside information just to confirm what I knew. And unfortunately, this came at the expense of one of the men who I respect the most in business and the sporting world right now, and that's Tony Khan. Tony Khan, who is involved with the Jacksonville Jaguars in American football, Fulham FC in the Premier League in England, and AEW, All Elite Wrestling, a televised wrestling product in America. See, you start to see when you follow so many different sports how different fans can be. Simply just because of the sport they're attracted to. It attracts all sorts of different people for different reasons, with different personalities, different quirks, different, you know, name whatever you will. There's a lot of different people out there. And what I've learned is that in wrestling, fans are very, very insecure. They need apologizing to all the time. They need reasons all the time. If someone's not being signed and they think people need to be signed, then people like Tony Khan are expected to come forward and explain what's going on with business, what's going on with this, that, and the other. You don't do that in football, right? Soccer. You don't do that in football. In football, you keep your mouth shut, and sure, you do what the fans want, but you don't openly apologize, and unless you know you're the manager or one of the players. If you're in charge of a financial thing, you should never be issuing apologies to the fans, because they will destroy you. Especially Fulham, because who's Fulham's rivals? Chelsea, and Chelsea fans can be toxic as fuck. I know that because I am one. I see sort of stuff that fans of the same club as me have said. I've had Chelsea fans come at me being like, well, your club's shit. And it's just like, well, we support the same club, so that kind of backfired on you, you fucking idiot. Anyway, Tony Khan issues an apology and talks about a little bit of the transfer business, about centre-backs, how centre-backs, some have had COVID, so they've been looking at other options, and apologises for the team's recent form. Scott Parker, manager, says he's disappointed by that response. Jamie Carragher called him a clown. Roy Keane said, you know, take your medicine, shut up and get on with it. Get over it and get on with it. And they're all right. That's the annoying thing. Because that's how we do things in this sport. That's how the fans approach things in the sport. It's not going to change no matter how much you apologize. In wrestling, you can put to ease so many panicked, over-emotional fans by just issuing an apology. Look, it happens all the time. Especially with WWE. They've got to issue apologies to certain people all the fucking time. AEW, it's had to be Tony Khan apologizing to people all the time. For things that might not necessarily be under his control. But in the football one, he's apologizing for something that is under his control. And he's being called a clown for it. But see, if he did that tweet related to the wrestling community, you know, it would be a hot topic. It would be interesting. People would be like, oh, okay, Tony, we get it. You know, but yeah, it's just, the approach is incredibly different. And I'm not knocking football fans. I'm knocking wrestling fans. Because I've noticed this about myself too. Wrestling makes you so goddamn insecure as a fan. And that's not AEW's fault. Oh my god, it's WWE's. Holy fuck. The reason why English-speaking pro wrestling has fans that are so needy, so fickle, so painfully embarrassed to be wrestling fans in their cores, that they need this constant reassurance. It's so embarrassing. I'm a wrestling fan, and then all these fans are looking for reassurances about who's getting signed and all that. I'm just going, well, as long as enough people are watching to justify the show being kept on, who gives a fuck about everything else? If something goes wrong, then you point it out like you do in a normal sport. But God forbid, like, all the inside stuff the wrestling fans care more about than the actual wrestling. They care about the ratings more than the show. You know what I mean? Like, wrestling fans right now have serious problems. Like, that's why it's an undesirable community to get involved with. All my friends, if I'm watching pro wrestling with them, they don't mind because they're watching with me. Right? They don't mind because they know what I'm like. They see other fans watching wrestling, and they think that they're just grown-up man children. Women children. Just adults acting like insecure teenagers over a show, over a sport. And, you know, pro wrestling's not exactly a bullshit sport. It's a pretty fucking intense sport. So if anything, wrestling should have fans that are as brutal and as hard to win over as UFC fans. But they don't. They've got insecure little children. Like, fans, you need to be able to think independently for yourselves. I understand that WWE has convinced you that you can't do that, but you can. You can do that, and you will do that. And now poor Tony, who tries his absolute best to sympathize with you. I can't believe I never saw this before, but all this made me see it. He tries so hard to sympathize with you that he doesn't even realize that in the eyes of people in all the other sports in the world, what he's doing is perceived as a joke and pathetic. And then how do you explain to other people? Like I tried, I said, you know, wrestling fans require the sort of information that he puts out there. And then they're going, well, that's no excuse. I'm going, well, it is an excuse because that's why he does it. But I can understand what you mean by, you know, it's not a good excuse. There's always a guy with soap in the toilets in the clubs. I always found that unnerving. It's not just GTA, in real life too. I'm lost in this place. I haven't been here in ages. Right, so I can only really cut it short from this point when it comes to wrestling fans. For the love of God, guys, grow the fuck up, right? And wrestling journalism needs to change, right? Because there's a couple of people that I've seen on Twitter. They're called WrestleJoy. Andy Nemeti, Phoenix, New Japan, and they have a puppet called Teddy Turnbuckle. They're not critics, right? They're not critics, and they're not reporters. They're fans who write positive things about the show. Journalists accuse them of not asking hard enough questions. They're not asking the hard-hitting questions. They're not supposed to. They're fans of the show. They're not trying to sabotage the show like you're trying to do. And yes, I'm going to rant about this because it's true. Journalists in wrestling, more so than any other sport, are trying to sabotage the sport. There is not a doubt in my mind. There is not a doubt in my fucking mind that they're trying to sabotage the sport. Are you trying to tell me that people like Ringside News actually like wrestling? They really fucking don't. I mean, they really don't. And we see Fightful with guys like Sean Ross Sapp. Sean Ross Sapp, right? He is very good at his job. And you know what? He's not even the worst of them. He's a long way off the worst, but he's still... Do you know what I mean? The problem with journalists is that they try to take themselves out of it. They try not to be biased. And you can't do that. You can't not be biased to something. You can't not have a preference. Otherwise you're not human. I'm trying to remember who it was who said that. I think it was a football coach. You know, he said, who did you want to win it? And it's like, well, I didn't want anyone to win. I'm impartial. It's like, you can't be impartial. Not when it comes to sports. Okay, if you're covering politics, you have to be, because God forbid you assume what any of those lying fucks are talking about. But God, like, everyone knows what I'm talking about. There's a difference between being unobjective and unbiased and just being a dick about it. And even then the difference isn't that great. Just admit you have a favorite. Do you have any idea how much more comfort people would have in reading your shit? Right? And you wouldn't have to use clickbaits either. That's the thing. Half the time you read an article, you read the article because of what it says in the headline, not because of who wrote it. That's not how it should be. That's not how it should be. You shouldn't be reading Harry Potter books because there's a headline saying that J.K. Rowling has transphobic moments or some bullshit like that. You should be reading Harry Potter books because you know they're good books and J.K. Rowling is a good fucking author. I know that's a bad example because I've just compared journalism to a story writer, but I mean, passion, right? Journalism is all about being as passionless as possible. I'm not firing shots. That's what they tell you it's their job to do. We're not allowed to support a side. We're not allowed to pick favorites. We're not allowed to have our own opinions. Then what are you? I could get a better conversation out of a brick wall. You can't be that emotionless when you cover things like sport. Because the reason you're involved with the sport is because you have passion. So be proud of that fucking passion. And in wrestling, you just can't be proud of that passion. That's the problem. Right? AEW, I hope to God they succeed, right? Because wrestling needs a new generation of passionate fans who will actually want to see what happens over the next 10, 20 years. And we all enjoy these memories together. Enjoy them. Don't pick them apart. Don't try to fucking solicit them to other bullshit. And stop trying to get people into trouble for saying things, for doing things. People say things and do things, maybe the wrong things, out of passion. Because sometimes we're so impassioned we don't have complete and utter control as someone who's pretending to be emotionless with a pen and a piece of paper. Right? Of course they're going to fuck up more times than you, emotionless journalists, because they feel they have passion. So for the love of God, do not stifle passion, or you will have nothing to be journalistic about. That's already happening. Has anyone else ever this is a bit of a broader subject. This transcends wrestling a bit, because I want to talk about this as a whole thing now. We've talked about how wrestling has it's a bigger problem for them than anyone else. But the biggest problem through journalism is what it's become. What journalism has become. You go on the news, right? The news channels. So many news channels now. You think with everything, the very little that goes on in the world, realistically, right? There would only be time for maybe news an hour a day or something. Just cram in all the stories. But no. No. Now we've got hundreds and hundreds of channels specifically dedicated to 24-hour news. And you've got to ask yourself, well, and that's not covering the whole globe, that's just covering whatever stories come to hand. How can these people possibly be finding this much news? And I'll tell you why. Because it's not fucking news. It's speculation 90% of the time. Turn on the news. On today's news, we talk about something that may or may not happen in 10 years' time. That's not fucking news. Am I the only one? Like, honestly, I mean, I'm saying this with a giant shit-eating grin on my face because I've never believed in the truth that I'm speaking as much as I do now. Like, is it just me, or is journalists one of the biggest forms of cancer in planet Earth? And I'll give you a prime example of a cancerous journalist, Piers fucking Morgan. Right? Try and find me a bigger piece of shit than Piers Morgan that isn't from the United States, because I know you've got some big competition in the USA for finding out who the biggest pieces of shit are. Not knocking the country as a whole, there are many lovely people, but for every lovely person there's an asshole. For every person there's an asshole. Remember that, because it's true. And plus I've seen your presidential candidates, Donald Trump and Joe Biden. My god, one's a senile old man and the other one's a dumb fuck billionaire. You guys are fucked either way, so good luck to you. And good luck if you hire Kanye West, by the way, because you'll have all the rednecks saying, oh well, you know, it's okay for him to sing the N-word and make millions and millions of dollars from glorifying the N-word, but if we say it, we're racist, right? Trust me, you guys are in for a lot of fun, regardless of who your president's going to be soon. So, I'm happy not to be you, but you know what? At the same time, I do feel for you. Good luck, my friends in America. You guys are gonna fucking need it. You're gonna fucking need every ounce of luck and hope and intelligence that you can muster, as do we here, but for different reasons. But yeah, anyway, journalism. Fuck journalism, right? If there's news, I want to see Trevor McDonald or someone like Trevor McDonald telling me the stories, telling me what's happened, what is happening, not what could happen, what might happen, what should happen, what you think should happen. Because it's not fucking news, it's not journalism. At that point, you're just a bitch whining in the wind like I am now. What I'm doing right now, this is more journalism than anything I've fucking read over the last 3 years. And I'm cramming it into one video whilst playing a fucking video game. What does that tell you? And everyone jumps at it, oh, couch critic, couch critic. Yeah, well, guess what? Why do you think there are so many couch critics? Because people can see things as clear as fucking day through a television screen in their home compared to these people who are supposedly amongst the action, witnessing what's going on for themselves. And you're like, you're not even paying attention, are you? You're just looking into the camera, hoping that whoever's talking to you in the earpiece gives you some good information for a change, so you don't have to look like an idiot all the time. Because God forbid you look like an idiot all the time. You tell a 10-second good story, you'll be a hero journalist again. All your past discretions and bullshit doesn't matter. You got in one good story, you're a hero now. Congratulations. You've started a Twitter revolution. You've got 200 people agreeing with your views. You are a revolutionist, my friend. Congratulations. And that mentality and those people is what makes sports like pro wrestling so damn hard to be a fan of. It's so hard to be a fan of anything now, for whatever reason that journalists can come up with. Well, guess what? Here's a new one for you, plot twist. I'm not a fan of journalism because I'm a human being with real human emotions. I've been in bullshit places, I've had to bullshit, I've had to lie. And you know what? I was never any better for it. So I cannot imagine that publicly printing your bullshit is mentally healthy for you. Or mentally healthy for anyone else. And now we've got things like social media. Everyone wonders why we all have more mental health issues than ever before. Why do you think that is? It's because we've never been so caged in all of our lives. I mean, I'm sure there were times, right, when there was... People could argue, what about World War II? What about in the olden days with the Egyptians? Yeah, that was only areas. I'm talking on a global scale here. We are all fucking trapped. And it is by design. And journalists just remind us of that. They just remind us that intelligence is suppressed and stupidity is glorified. Journalists teach us this better than world leaders. And they do a pretty good job at reminding us, don't they? Vladimir Putin, he's a genius. Oh, I know what'll get everyone on side. Poisoning people with Novichok. Genius. Genius, Mr. Putin. Genius. And, Boris Johnson with his fucking lockdown protocols. Oh, honestly. See, look at that. Look what journalism did. Journalists just made me lose 50k in two hands. Bad energy calls for bad things to happen. That's proof of it right there. But at least I made a profit, so I'm not hurting too much. You ever get that feeling where you've let something off your chest, you just feel so much more relaxed now? I am in that place. I am in that place. Oh, it feels wonderful. So. Oh, and journalists, one more thing. Don't talk about COVID-19 unless you know what the fuck you're talking about. This adds more to the speculation stuff I was talking about. Everyone's talking about how COVID-19 is going to have a second wave, it's going to be more deadly than ever. That's not how viruses work. That's how bacteria work. This is not bacteria, this is a virus. The virus has already evolved several 100,000 times since February. The virus is already less potent than it was before. But of course, you would know different because you're the geniuses with the pens. You guys must know a lot more than me, an average person with a brain who's not trying to earn money through clickbait. Look at my title. My title in this video is not clickbait. I list the things I'm going to talk about. I didn't even tell you that I'm going to rant about shit. You find that out when you pay attention. You've probably not got this far because this is a long ass video. I'm a random person. You probably haven't taken the time to do this, but if you have, I'll give you credit. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Because I will admit, with very openly, very cockily, very patting myself on the back, I am one of the most brutally honest people on the fucking face of the earth. I tell white lies now and again like everybody else. You know what though, when it comes to how the world works, when it comes to where we all really stand, when it comes to how our voices are heard, why they're heard, and the reason why they're never heard, is all true. Real world shit, this is where you come. Right? I really don't care what you read. I don't care what information is pumped into our tiny fucking skulls. Because our heads cannot contain the amount of information that is now out there. Because so much of it is bullshit. Just ask yourself one question before you read this. You don't even need to listen to me. I was just going to say, I can promise you, you'll get a voice of reason every time you talk to me. But you know what? You don't even need that. Take a deep breath and ask yourself, do I actually believe this shit? And most of the time you'll find yourself saying no. Sometimes you might not know why, but that's okay. You'll figure that out down the line. Think for yourselves, people. Everybody needs to think for themselves. Everybody needs to wisen up. Everybody needs to look after their intellectual property. And I don't mean stuff that they create. I mean their brains. The ultimate intellectual property. Because that's what writers, governments, people trying to sell you things are going for. They're going for your brain. Protect it. Look after it. Savor your moments of clarity where you look at a bunch of idiots doing something and you go, wow, thank God I am not that stupid. And in that moment, you will feel yourself build back up some of that pride. That pride that journalists and governments and media outlets have tried so hard to strip from you. It'll come back. It'll come back. It'll take time, because you'll realize that to have a lot of pride, you need a lot of pride. You can be prideful and still not have a lot of pride. It's going to take a while back to get it all back, but you can manage. They'll tell you you can't, but again, do you really believe them? Do they really know you better than you know you? You're the one that wakes up, looks yourself in the mirror, looks into your eyes, studies every vein in your bloodshot eyes. If you haven't been sleeping, you've been looking at your body. If you're feeling too fat, it's all under your control. And you know what? I lose sight of that all the time, because that's what they're trying to do. You've just got to keep telling yourself it, because the doubts won't go away. They won't go away, and people will come up with new doubts to try and screw with you, to put you in a pigeonhole that you've never been in before, which makes you less likely to escape. Don't worry. We are all members of the human race. We are all part of the alpha species. No matter what color, no matter what accent, no matter background, we all have the same capacity for intelligence, for reasoning, and for more importantly, something which everybody has lost sight of, togetherness. Togetherness. A city was not built by one man with a vision. Electricity was, sure, it might have been discovered by someone specific, but all the years that have led us to the ability to where we can harness it now, that didn't just come all with the discovery. They didn't discover it and then just within half an hour had planned out the next 1,000 years of evolution. It takes togetherness to build something we can be proud of. Even if it's only ourselves, you need it. So for the love of God, go visit your families. Fuck what they say. Oh, they might get sick. Your family might get sick anyway. My grandmother's old. She's not got long left. I can't go visit her. Listen to what you just said. Listen to what they just told you. She's not well and she's not got long left. And that's your reason to not see her. Think about how sick that is for a moment. Just think about it. Forget about the reasons that they've pumped into your head. Think about it. They are taking away your family. Whilst kids, snotty-nosed kids, are going around fucking rubbing chewing gum in each other's hair, hugging each other, or crawling around in the mud and going back home to spread the virus anyway. They're taking away your family whilst this is going on. Because the government can't afford to lose control of the next generation, because they're losing control of this generation. And this generation, I was a way to say are above them, but then I just threw the car into the ocean. So, oh, that's an expensive mistake, probably. Oops. Well, that is a very solemn note to end that topic of conversation on, but you know what? It's good. It's over. It's over. It's done. Don't have to talk about it now. You get my message.
Morse Mutual.
Be
How
intellectual.
can I be of service?
Look after your families.
Sure.
Look
With
after
Morse,
each other.
It's mutual.
Okay. So, what's next, you might ask? Well,
Hello.
there's only really one sport
I can do that.
that I have to talk about left, and that's Formula One. Formula One, well, this is a nice light topic to end on, actually, because, well, Formula One is quite boring. He says when he gets into a car, it is very boring. And it's not because Lewis Hamilton is the champion, which everybody will have a go at you for. If you say that Formula One is boring, people will jump down your throat going, oh, well, you know, Lewis Hamilton's champion. You can hate that if you want, you're racist. Because, you know, people assume that you're bored with Formula One because it's a black man that's champion. Thank you, Black Lives Matter movement, for that assumption. Just assuming that everybody else is racist. Anyway. Lewis Hamilton is not the problem with Formula One. Mercedes is the problem with Formula One. I'm not sick of Lewis Hamilton winning races. I'm sick of him and his teammates being in a car which is untouchable.
It's on the way.
Michael Schumacher was an untouchable driver. His teammate was usually beaten by other drivers in other cars. There was Fernando Alonso in the early days. There was Kimi Räikkönen. There was Mika Hakkinen. There was Damon Hill. Right? And you could say there's Max Verstappen here, but even then, because of the point system and the amount of races, Max Verstappen's nowhere near Lewis, because the Red Bull is just not half as quick as the Mercedes.
Oh my God.
Right? Not Lewis, the Mercedes. Big difference, right, between being the best driver on the grid and being part of a team which is untouchable. There's a big fucking difference. Big difference. Lewis Hamilton is not the fastest driver on the Formula One grid. He is one of the most consistent, and because of his car, he's one of the most decorated. But he does not deserve to be a 7-time world champion with more wins than Michael Schumacher. He is not that good. He's not. He's not. And you know, if Michael Schumacher was in that Mercedes, I dread to think. Honestly, I would dread to think what would happen if Michael Schumacher was in that Mercedes. Rubens Barrichello would have had a hell of a career. I mean, he had a hell of a career anyway, but Barrichello would have had so much more if he had been with the Mercedes. Right? Lewis Hamilton is not the greatest of all time. He never will be. He is in the greatest Formula One car of all time. And all he's done in particularly the last 3 or 4 years, right? Realistically, all he's done is outrace his teammate. Yeah, check me just casually throwing around this $3 million car. Yes, Formula One is very, very boring. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The commentators, the pundits, the staff, the fans, like the wrestling fans, have to cheer for something that they shouldn't be so depressed. They're so depressed that they have to find something to cheer in. And that's what Formula One is. You can't cheer about who wins the race because the people who win the race don't even cheer. You hear the race engineer, "Get in there, Lewis." And then the response you get is, "Thanks guys, yeah, great car, great job." And that's when they've won the race, dominated it. That's how much passion exists in that team, in that driver, right? People can't get behind that. People just can't get behind that. And so people take that passion and they focus it on, ooh, who's going to come third? Because Valtteri's going to come second, Lewis's teammate. The other Mercedes is going to come second. So who's going to come third? Who's going to come fourth? Ooh! And you're sort of going, who gives a fuck? For how many years have we known the saying, no one remembers who comes second. Who the fuck remembers who comes third? Now we're in a position where we have to talk about that, because the best driver on the grid, the fastest driver on the Formula 1 grid, is the guy who might come third. You take away Mercedes, that means he's the fastest driver in Formula 1 who might win. That's how it should be, isn't it? That's the mentality we should be having. That's the passion we should be having. The level of intensity and down to the wireness of what Formula 1 needs to be. And it's not there. It's not there. Because Mercedes are allowed to cheat. Lewis Hamilton, yes, he's a very good driver, but the car is untouchable. And their rivals just can't match them. Ferrari were caught cheating, so now they've had to completely change their car for this year, and it's a piece of crap. The Red Bull, right, is not a good car, but Max Verstappen is just that damn good. Everyone says they're the second best car on the grid. They're not. Second best car on the grid in Formula 1 right now is either the McLaren or the Renault. It's probably the Renault. Red Bull's maybe the third or fourth best car out there. Max Verstappen, though, is the best driver. That's why he gets the podiums. That's why he gets the wins. That's why he's the only guy who ever is within touching distance of beating the Mercedes. Because he's that damn quick. You know, when people go, right? When we see a race, it is bog standard for Mercedes to overlap everybody. Everybody. Okay? I mean everybody. Everybody from first to third, Mercedes should be overlapping. And they usually do. They usually lap everybody from last to fourth. Not third, fourth. And why is that? Because Max Verstappen is so damn quick that not only is he not being lapped by Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas, he's so damn quick, he's also lapping everybody else with the Mercedes. That tells you how he's lapping his teammate in the same goddamn car. What does that tell you? It's not luck. It's because he's the fastest driver in Formula 1. That's the guy who should be challenging week in, week out for race wins, but he can't because the Mercedes car is rigged and it's too quick. You know, originally, yes, it was that they were technologically more advanced, that they'd come up with a superior car, but at this point, it's ridiculous. DAS doesn't affect the pace of the car. It only affects the camber of the tires. Right. Camber of the tires, which affects grip and tire temperature, two factors which affect race pace. How the hell does that, how the hell do people do they get away with that? Like, honestly, like, how much money do you have to pay the FA, the FIA, to not be punished for that? And not only that, it's outlawed next season, but they're getting to keep it for the rest of this year. This unfair advantage. Oh, no, you lads. You can keep cheating for the rest of this year, just not this year. Next year. Get to fuck. Seriously. That's not sport. That is not sport. Anyone who tells me that's sport, to be blunt, 3 words. Go fuck yourself. Because it's not sport. You want to know what sport is? I've described sport to you. Sport's down to the wire. It highlights who the best is. Right? Yes, Formula 1, yes, it's kind of about who makes the best machine. But this modern generation don't think that way. Because this isn't the pioneers of the 60s and 70s where everyone's cars look completely different. Apart from minute changes, everyone's cars look exactly the same now. The only thing a team is, and this is the honest truth to modern Formula 1 fans, It's just a color. People aren't fans of Ferrari because of Ferrari innovation. They're fans of wearing red. Fans of Mercedes are, well, they're glory hunters, but they're also fans of the silver. Fans of McLaren. I'm not saying this goes for all fans, by the way, because I'm aware we've got the elderly fans and the regular aged fans who you know, have their own reasons, grew up watching all of the fabulous racing before it was killed off. Now it's about colors, right? Look at what they're saying about the Racing Point, the pink Mercedes. God, something like that in the 60s or 70s would have been ridiculed. It wouldn't have. They probably wouldn't have even allowed it to go on the road because it was so similar to someone else's car. They had to be innovative. So I understand that Formula One is about the innovation of teams as well as the quickness of Formula One drivers. But the innovation isn't there anymore. All the innovation's in the engine. All those electrical units for the new hybrid era. There's no joy in the design of Formula One cars. It's just strategic. So people don't get behind a car team anymore. They get behind the driver. So yes, I understand people aren't appreciating what Mercedes do. But that's just because, as I said, the cars just... It's not fair. Right? People just don't care about that anymore. It's about the drivers. So that's why you get some people who are lost in their own thoughts, where they're like, oh, well, you know, I am furious at how boring Formula One is, but I do like Lewis. It's got nothing to do with Lewis. And then you have people go, well, it's because it's Lewis, because you're racist, and because, you know, you can't accept just because he's the best. And you go, no, it's his car. It's his car. I don't like the Mercedes because it's a cheating car. Nobody can sway me. FIA, any fan, they can come up with as many technical excuses as they can. All the shit to do with data. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I studied basic physics. I've studied car mechanics. I know that the camber of the wheels that is affected by DAS affects the pace of a car. And how the FIA have concluded that it doesn't is beyond me. But yet, as I've said, they've outlawed it for next year. So even though it doesn't do anything, it's still worth banning for next year for anyone else to use. I smell a big payment behind the scenes to keep their mouth shut, or to allow this car to keep running. Because people make that excuse about Ferrari, that Ferrari, you know, they have all this power, all this control. Think about the dominance of Mercedes, right? It's Ferrari-esque. So right now, Mercedes have lots of power in Formula One compared to what they want you to believe. Maybe not compared to Ferrari, but they have plenty of power to get a bribe through, unquestioned. And you know what? It's not even an accusation in my mind. It's what should happen. It's must have happened. For something to be legal this year and illegal next year takes a bribe. It takes a bribe. Because you're acknowledging something's wrong by banning it. But you're allowing them to keep on. You just see, I'm going round in circles because it's so simple. So I don't know why these people find it so tricky to deal with this bullshit. It's painful. I mean, look at me for my thought process. I've had to go around this airport round and round and round just to keep myself amused. The interior for this car is bullshit, by the way. If you're a GTA fan and you're a big fan of aesthetics, this is the Krieger, which is a $2.9 million car. It's one of the most expensive road cars that isn't a Formula One car in the game. And the interior is, well, it's non-existent. Yes, Formula One. please, for the love of God, for the love of everything, right? It needs to be racing. 40-second gaps from first place to second place is not racing. And then a further 20 seconds back to third. That's not racing. That's an exhibition of the fastest car, which I will keep saying till I'm blue in the face, is a cheating car. It is an illegal car. And you know what the sad thing is? Is that even if, say, I was there and I had an influence on these decisions, it would make a difference because the Mercedes power unit is still faster than everything else on the grid. It's just so not only are they faster than everyone, they're faster than everyone with an unfair advantage on top of that. Formula 1, ladies and gentlemen, where the best racing takes place. Let me tell you something. The best racing takes place in Formula 2 and Formula E. And here on GTA with that lovely corner. There's a lot that needs to change. See, compared to everything else that I've talked about, with UFC, wrestling, all these other things, I've talked about how it's outside influences that are ruining it, right? Formula 1 is one of the very few that is internally wrong. Very internally wrong. I do like the way this handles, actually. For a boring interior. Oh, overshot that. Yeah. Got too cocky with the braking on that one. Yeah, Formula 1, sort your shit out. Apparently the rules are still going to be changing for next year. I don't believe that. I think it's the budgets. I believe it's the budgets that are changing for not next year, but the year after. However, the car changes, the complete overhaul of the design of the vehicles, I believe is still happening next year. So we're still going to get the new styles of Formula 1 car, but we're just probably going to see the exact same results until 2022. And even then, Mercedes will have found some way to eke out advantages like everyone else would, but Mercedes seem to do it better than everyone else because they do it from a joyless perspective. I've talked about this with a few people. Mercedes, when I say Mercedes do it from a joyless perspective, I mean that they come, they play hard, right? They win, they don't celebrate. No time to celebrate, on to the next one. They win the world title, right? They'll celebrate for a day and get back to work. There's no passion in Mercedes. Someone will argue that the passion is highlighted with the work ethic, but you can have a huge work ethic and suck the life and joy out of everything you see. Vladimir Klitschko, right, was a very passionate, very, very passionate boxer. Very passionate about boxing, but people thought he was boring. He sucked the life out of it. He barely celebrated wins at one point because he was just so used to winning. When it gets to that point, it needs a change, an energy change, a change to the status quo. Right, I've got to take this one like a Formula 1 car, haven't I? How would they do it? Brake there. And come out a little bit wide again. Oh, that was close. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you've probably not made it this far, but for the few who did, or if you skipped to the end, thank you anyway. I'm sure it will count as a view towards my total. But yeah, thank you. I just wish more people had the ability to think You know, that's all. That's all I really want in life. When I finally get to the point where I want to bring kids into this world, I could bring kids into this world right now, but I don't want to, because this world is not right, and a few things need to change. And I know we've been talking about sport, but that's one of the things that needs to change. The things that we are passionate about, we need to remember why we're passionate about it, because if we lose that and we're just focused on politics and work, we're going to end up in World War III, which we're angling towards anyway, simply from unrest across the globe. That is much better. Look at that. That's a proper corner. That's a proper corner. That's how it's done. But yeah, there's just a lot that needs to change about people, about how we act, about how we do things, about how we react to things. The human race is slowly devolving. You know, we've gone through thousands and thousands and thousands of years of evolution, and now through all of our technology and restricting ourselves with our own laws and rules and all this other made up crap, we are slowly devolving into more stupid, less capable, lazy, mental health scarred weaklings, basically. And yeah, we'll need that to change if we are to keep on surviving. Sorry, I'm really focused on now trying to perfect this corner, which I've just took way too fucking early. God damn, that was awful, wasn't it? I'm gonna try that one last time. One last time, and then I'll probably call it quits on this video. Just a little positive note. We'll go from the outside. That's the best one yet. Didn't even have to break for that one. Right, well, this has been quite an epic combination of telling you things that are very exciting and telling you things which are very irritating and deserve a mini rant. This has been quite a bipolar video, I have to admit. But you know, I sat down this morning and I kind of said, you know what, I've got a lot that I want to get off my mind, and well, no one in the real world will listen. So fuck it, hopefully a couple of smart people will stumble across this video on whatever app it may be. Well, it'll be on YouTube, won't it? On whatever device it may be. And if you're in a position, if you're one of these people in a position to change something in one of these sports, or if you're a journalist, then you've just learned something very important. It's important to have emotions. It's important to respect people. And it is more important to look after yourself more than it is anybody else. Doesn't matter what morals might tell you or what anyone else tells you. Look after yourself, or you won't be able to look after anyone else. It's as simple as that. So, to everyone out there in the world, once again I'll say, I know most of you are okay. You're not ill. You're not affected by COVID-19, and I'm sorry you've been inconvenienced. For those of you that may have been affected by it, I'm sorry. Don't think that I'm one of the people that acknowledge it. It doesn't exist, because that's nonsense. It does exist. I just question the overhyped potency that we're told it has, which I believe is already weaker than what it once was. Through simple biology. But anyway, good luck to you all. Yeah, only one life. Doesn't matter if we're on lockdown, we're still gonna die anyway, so might as well do what you can, right? Peace. Don't lose yourselves.